Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by travel expert and businesswoman Ashlee Dozier. Ashlee, a Florida girl with a love for travel and business. In 2016, she ended her long-standing career in public health and exited an abusive relationship and went on a solo 4-month-long backpacking trip around the world where she discovered Egyptian fragrances and decided to create her own. So Ashlee, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's so awesome to be here.
Well, why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So as you said, I kind of consider it my previous life now. I worked in, public health and both at, higher education at universities and at the CDC. And I loved it. I loved what I was doing and everything, but budget cuts and red tape and all of that just kind of over time led to me feeling a little bit jaded with that career. And at the time I was in a relationship that unfortunately turned very emotionally and verbally abusive. And as many people who have been in those types of relationships know, that they're just very hard to get out of. And it takes you a long time to really realize, what's happening and that you don't deserve that's not, normal or what real love is. And it definitely took me a while. We were together for 6 years and finally just kind of hit a wall and said, okay, this is not working. And, we were engaged, but realized we're never going to get married. This is toxic. And so I literally put everything I owned into storage. I, moved out of the home that I owned with him and loaded up a backpack full of clothes and just kind of set out with no itinerary and began wandering the world. No plans, no ideas of really where I was going to go, what I was going to do. I had a couple places in mind of, kind of bucket list dream places that I wanted to go, like Australia and Paris and Egypt and, just a few different places. And so I said, we'll just get started and see where it takes me. And I ended up, being gone for 4 months. And during that trip, like I said, I did end up in Egypt. And while I was there, I just happened to find these beautiful fragrance oils that my, guide took me to a perfumery one day. And I fell in love with some of these fragrance oils and bought one in particular, was wearing it all the time. And when I got back to the States, I got so many compliments on it. I realized, how beautiful it was and unique it was. And that you really, I couldn't get it anywhere in the US. I went online to try and find, where you could purchase more of it, and you couldn't get it. And a light bulb moment kind of went off. And I said, well, if I still have contact with, where I got it in Egypt, I need to, get back in touch with them and see if it's something that I can begin importing. And because of that, the trajectory of my life really changed because I, found a passion for a product that I loved and began my own business around these fragrance oils. And so now I own a company called Anuket Luxury Apothecary, and I import fragrance oils from Egypt and we hand bottle them here. I'm in Tampa Bay, Florida, and sell them all over the world. We're sell online and wholesale, to boutiques and spas and resorts all over the world. And it's just been such a passion project. And so for something like that to, turn into career in a business I really love, I guess that's, part of the definition of living the dream, right?
That's absolutely right. So if you don't mind me asking, what did you do when you worked at the CDC?
Yeah, so I worked in chronic health. I worked on mainly obesity and tobacco prevention. So we had an amazing program that started with 50 different communities all around the country. In each of those communities, we gave them grant money to help them start to tackle the the top two killers in our country, which are obesity and tobacco. And so just making environmental changes, making it easier for people to, making places more walkable, making healthier foods more available in what we would call food deserts, these neighborhoods and areas that didn't have really strong markets to be able to get healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables and meats and things. And then with tobacco prevention, it was just, trying to educate and then getting more places smoke-free and tobacco-free so that people who didn't smoke could enjoy, outdoor patios and parks and all these places that, people could still smoke, and that, just made it hard for those non-smokers to continue to enjoy those outdoor spaces with clean air.
So when you went on your backpacking trip, what was some of I know you went to Egypt, but what were some of the great places and experiences that you visited and experienced during that time?
Oh my gosh, I have so many, because I really set out on that trip to, live the dream, to say, okay, these are all the places, that I've wanted to go. These are things that I've wanted to do. I mean, I checked so many things off my bucket list, like in Australia. So I started in Australia. Well, I started in California, and I'm from Florida. So I started in California, and I spent a lot of time there and really enjoyed, my time in California. And then from there, it made it easier to get over to Australia. So Australia was the first country that I visited, and got to do things like ride a camel through the outback past Uluru, which is this, beautiful area in what they call the Red Center, in the center of the country. And so that was just a really cool experience. And I had a dinner one night in the desert out there under the stars, which was incredible, and got to swim in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia near the Whitsundays Islands up there. And that was through a recommendation from a friend that said, while you're in Australia, any chance you're doing, a sailboat cruise? And I said, no, I hadn't thought of that. And they said, well, you have to do it. So I booked a sailboat cruise and got on a little, sailboat with 20 or 30 people I didn't know, but had a fantastic weekend out there, and, did some snorkeling and enjoying the beaches. The Whitsundays are, almost every year labeled one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. So it was really a joy to see that, coming from Florida, where we do have beautiful beaches, but it's very different, from these beaches out in Australia. And so that was pretty incredible. And then, little things all along the way. I went, wine tasting in New Zealand, which was an amazing experience because I love wines from that area. And went to Singapore and got to experience the gardens that they have there, the Gardens by the Bay, which is absolutely stunning. And I just got very lucky that it was their orchid season. And so the Orchid Festival was going on, which was one of the most beautiful experiences, to walk through these greenhouses that are just overflowing with orchids. Let's see, in Egypt, of course, I did, the pyramids. I, rode camels out to the pyramids. And at the time, they really did not have a lot of travelers there. There wasn't a lot of tourism going on. And so I would go into some of these, inside some of these pyramids or the tombs, and I was like the only one in there. And it was really cool, to be able to spend time wandering through these places and really be able to soak it in without, crowds of people around you. So that was incredible. And did a cruise down the Nile River. That was another suggestion from somebody that I hadn't even thought of. But now I tell everybody, if you're going to Egypt, you have to do a cruise down the Nile River, because that's where all the cool stuff is, in those ports. And oddly enough, that's where I found the perfume. So had somebody not suggested that I do that cruise, my life would probably be very different right now. And then I went and just wandered through Europe, spent a lot of time there. So in, Greece, I did the Greek islands, and Italy, I did Cinque Terre, which is, along the coast of Italy. And I got to go to Oktoberfest in Germany, which was such a cool experience. So to do that, and then stopped in Amsterdam, and then finished my trip in Paris. That was my last stop before I had to get back to the States and kind of get back to life a little bit. But I definitely, feel that I was incredibly lucky. I, did it saved up a little bit of money. I kind of did it the right way. I didn't spend a whole lot of money on certain things so that I could spend more money on these, amazing experiences that I otherwise wouldn't get to do. And really just, found a way to make it happen in each city and kind of ask the locals, what's the most, unique thing, or what's something I have to do while I'm here. And just asking people along the way on my trip was, the best way for me to find the most, unique experiences in each country.
Well, what advice would you give entrepreneurs out there looking to make a career change and start a business?
I always start by saying it's hard. And I know that people kind of know that, but I guess it's the kind of thing that you just have to keep reminding people, like, it's hard. It's a lot of work. You wear a lot of hats. But as that old saying goes, if you find something you love, you never work a day in your life. I believe that to an extent, but you're still working. You're still working hard. But the difference is that, when you're doing something that you really love, it doesn't feel like work in the same way. It's still work. You're still working your butt off, but there's a passion behind it, and there's a love for what you do behind it that makes it easier to keep going. So if you're going to start, a business or some kind of venture, make sure you know what your passion is. What is it that's driving you to do this? What is it that you love that can keep you going during those hard times? And when you're working, 7 days a week sometimes, or working 12-hour days, and, really having to put the grind in, make sure that it's something that you really love. And from there, it makes it a whole lot easier because I bootstrapped my entire business. So I never took on investors. I'm not like your startup that, got a big boost of an investment money to get going. I started my business with $500, and I just continued to, put money back into the company as we grew. And, we're still growing. We're still, in that growth phase. And it's the kind of thing where you learn to wear all of the hats, learn to do a little bit of everything for your company so that you understand what goes into every aspect of it. And then when you get to a point where you can start to hire people who are really talented in their field, you can recognize that talent because you know what it takes to do that part of the job. So, I've done the marketing, I've done the sales, I've done the operations behind the scenes. And now that I know a little bit of all of it, it's going to make it a whole lot easier for me to keep the business going and not rely on somebody else to tell me, that part of the business, if it's going well or not. I'll be able to recognize it.
Well, as a new company, how did the pandemic affect your company, and how did you manage to keep growing throughout the pandemic?
Oh, yeah. I definitely had to switch gears a little bit because I had started by doing, some in-person events like pop-up markets and things like that, because, they're fragrances, and fragrances you have to be able to appreciate in person, to know if you like them or not. And so I started, with more in-person events with some wholesale, things like that. And that was, I started a year before COVID hit. And so, being only a year-old company when that happened, when everything kind of shut down, and everybody started shopping online, I had to really switch roles and get my products, my website doing much better, and really get everything online to where people could order sample packs so that, they could order samples and know what these products even smell like, because, otherwise, nobody's going to purchase a bottle of a fragrance that they've never smelled before. So I really had to switch gears in that way and figure out, how can I sell these products online? How can I be an e-commerce fragrance company? And then start doing a lot of marketing, social media marketing. I hired a team of marketing interns and had them help me really start to market the brand as, these luxury fragrances from Egypt that Egyptians have been using for thousands of years. But for some reason, the US has never really caught on to, this idea of these pure fragrance oils, these essential oils, that have been used. And so it was the idea of, okay, papyrus oil is our number one seller. It is pure papyrus essential oil. Like I said, that's the one that I fell in love with. When I was in the perfumery in Egypt, they brought it out and I just instantly had truly a gut reaction to it. I mean, it was like, this is incredible. It is unique. have to have this in my life. And like I said, I took a lot of it home with me. Well, when I went to buy more online, finding that there wasn't anywhere online, you couldn't even really find a lot of information about papyrus oil. So I had to quickly, become kind of the authority in papyrus oil online, so that people could understand what it was and what it was used for. And so we, created our website around that idea, and then really, still one of the only sources of pure papyrus oil in the US or anywhere online. I have people from, every country reaching out and saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you for shipping to my country, because I found this while I was in the Middle East, or, a friend had it and I fell in love with it, and, I haven't been able to get it anywhere." And so really COVID is the one that, pushed me to realize that online marketing and in terms of, the business, really getting the SEO and starting a blog on our website and really starting to educate people about this product made us expand a lot quicker, because people could find us from all over the world versus only being, in person in front of people at small pop-up markets around the Tampa Bay area.
So you talked about your abusive relationship earlier. What advice would you give people that are in abusive relationships?
It's so hard because they're all so different. And I will tell you, even while I was in it, I'm not sure I would have taken a lot of advice from other people. It's like one of those things that until you realize, that what's happening and what's in front of you, it's very, very hard to recognize. And I wish that people that saw little bits of it, I wish they would have said more. I don't know if that's right. Are you really happy? Is that, is that the way you want to be treated? And just kind of make you think about it. So really my advice would be even more for people that are around or that get hints of, seeing friends or family in an abusive relationship. You can't push somebody to leave that relationship until they're ready. You really have to help them slowly, recognize that they deserve better, that that's not, what love is, that that's not normal, and that you are there for them no matter what. And I was incredibly lucky at the time, to have a best friend that as soon as I said, "Okay, I'm getting out of this," and she said, "Come move in with me and my fiance," immediately, there was just no hesitation in, me having somewhere to go. And she let me come stay with her. And so really just, starting to recognize people around you, that if you don't feel safe, or if you feel like, okay, I really need to start working my way out of this, start to find the people around you that could potentially help you. Start to find there's so many resources out there for domestic violence, and, start to really get an idea of those resources first, and even just the people in your life being a resource, and, start talking to them, being honest. I've always said, yes, there are some things that have to stay private in a relationship. However, if you can't share, with friends and family, a lot of aspects of your relationship, if you're hiding a lot of aspects of your relationship, that's usually because there's something wrong there. So pay attention to those cues of, I can't tell them that he yells at me. I can't tell them the names that he calls me. Or, even if they start to isolate you, he would tell me that, my friends didn't really like me, that they really only hang out with us because of him, or that my family was really fed up with me. And, they do these things to kind of isolate you. But it's like, you have to learn not to be too scared to find the people. If I would have just asked some of my friends, "Hey, is this really true?" And, gotten to know the truth from them versus just listening to him, I think I could have gotten out a lot sooner and been a lot more confident in my abilities to stand on my own without him, even though I was, he was telling me often otherwise. So I guess best advice I can give is start to find your resources, really start to figure out what you can do around you to get yourself safe or happy, and then start to talk to people and just see who will listen and who you can trust, and then trust those people. And the people that are around somebody that's in an abusive relationship, just offer to be that, that trusting space that they can come into.
Well, why do you feel it's so important for people to travel and experience some of the things that you've experienced around the world?
I would say for me, one of the biggest, benefits of that trip especially was just the healing that happened. because of my relationship, and I was told that people, I was told often that people didn't like me and that I was, not a person that people wanted to be around, and that I, was overconfident, but I really wasn't going to be able to make it on my own out there. And so for me, especially the solo travel, part of that trip, being able to go off on my own, have no itinerary, find my own way, book my own, hotels and flights and things that, aren't hard to do, but when you're relying on somebody else and they're making you feel, like nobody wants to be around you, and you're going on these trips and you're meeting people from different cultures, and everybody, you're making new friends and people are really enjoying your company and you're enjoying meeting new people, your mind really starts to open. And so even if you're not going, for some sort of healing, even though I think everybody has some form of healing they can do in their life, even if you're not going for healing, just being able to open your eyes to new cultures, to new people. The people that I met were incredible. I mean, I really loved, talking to people from different backgrounds and for different reasons why they were traveling, and, learning about how Europeans often take a gap year whenever they, between like school and real life, where they go and travel for a year. I think that you do get a ton of education and world experience by doing that, and really understanding, what else is out there. It gets you out of your bubble and helps you realize that everybody's a little bit different, but we all have similarities too. And I know people say that all the time, and so it sounds a little cliche, but, when you're talking to people from Singapore and from Egypt and from Germany and Switzerland, and you're making friends with people, in all these different cultures, it really helps you to see that, as humans, our basic needs are the same, but we all fulfill them in so many different ways. And our lifestyles, can be so unique, but so satisfying for different people. So I've long said that travel is the best investment you can make in yourself, because it gives you, it may not be work experience, it may not be an investment that, gives you financial returns necessarily, but just the memories and the learning experiences and opening your mind in the ways that only travel can do truly is life-changing.
Describe the differences between fragrance oils, perfumes, and colognes.
Absolutely. I get this question so often because our products are just so different from what's out there. So typically in the US, most of our fragrances, we have eau de toilette, we have eau de parfum, eau de cologne, and these are all lab created fragrance oils that are then mixed with alcohol and other additives to make them sprayable, make them, either stronger or more diluted. Like body sprays, for example, are your most diluted. You can spray them and they smell fantastic, but they don't last very long on the skin. They're going to dissipate really quickly. You begin paying more for like parfums, eau de parfums, because they have more of that fragrance oil in them. It's a much greater concentration, but still your concentration of those only gets up to, 20, 30, maybe 40% in some of these products. Whereas the products that I sell are pure fragrance oils, and they're natural essential oils. So they are all natural oils. There's no alcohol or other additives, which means you are getting 100% pure scent, pure oil. So a little bit of that goes a long way. You can just rub a little bit on the pulse points. It's going to absorb into the skin better because it doesn't have that alcohol that makes it dissipate. And then it's going to last a lot longer on the skin. If you want to wear stronger scent, you can put more on. If you want to wear it very lightly, you can put just, a little swipe of it on the wrists. But really, the amount of fragrance oil is the biggest difference that's in these. And that really is what's going to give you, a longer lasting fragrance versus something that's not going to last, may only last for an hour or so. And so it may be less expensive, but you're having to reapply it so often that you're in the long run probably wasting more money that way.
Why do you feel that fragrance is so important in our daily lives?
Oh gosh, fragrance, and I didn't even know this until I smelled that papyrus oil in this Egyptian perfumery for the first time. But fragrances truly, there's aromatherapy for a reason. Fragrances really can change your mood. Fragrances, having like a signature scent for yourself. Fragrances can can make an impact on the people around you. It can, give people kind of an idea of who you are as a person. Papyrus oil, for example, is an aphrodisiac. It's quite a strong aphrodisiac. And it was used that way in Egypt for a very long time. And so, wearing a little bit of this papyrus oil, it creates some sensuality around you. Some of our other scents, like Blue Lotus, has a very, very beautiful, clean, crisp, like clean linens kind of scent. So it smells, it has that very light and airy scent to it, which smells wonderful, is known to help with anxiety. So it can help calm anxiety whenever, just by wearing it. And so, having fragrance in your life, you realize, because fragrance or scent is our sense that is most strongly tied to memories, one little whiff of something can bring you back to a memory. I just recently, a few days ago, had a customer reach out to me, and it was one of my favorite, emails or customer responses I've probably ever received. And she said, first of all, thank you so much just for carrying these products. They're beautiful, and I'm so excited to have found them. She said, but particularly, my grandparents traveled to Egypt when my mother was a child and brought her back, a beautiful little bottle of perfume. And we've never known what it was because it didn't have any labels on it. But it was just this lovely little bottle of perfume that my mom has used all of her life. And she's used it so sparingly because she didn't know what it was, but she loved it and wanted to use it. And she said, I opened up your papyrus oil. And she said, I swear, I think we solved a 30-year mystery of where, what perfume this was that my parents bought her from Egypt. We're convinced now that it's papyrus oil, and now I smell it and it reminds me of my mom, and my mom can now order more of it and, continue to wear this that she's loved her whole life. And so just hearing stories like that, you realize that fragrance really can have an impact on somebody's life and can bring you back to a beautiful memory from when you were a child or when you were traveling. There's a reason that people buy fragrances that remind them of different places that they've traveled to kind of get that everyday luxury feeling of, the suntan, and coconut smell that, if you, while you were in Hawaii, come back home and slather yourself up with, something that smells delicious, like, coconut and sunscreen, and it kind of takes you back to that place. So that's why I love, just that impact that fragrances can have on people, because the memories that are tied to it can be so strong.
Do you have any current or upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about?
Oh gosh, we always have something in the works at Anuket. Yeah, the biggest thing is that people continue to ask me for ways that they can, new ways that they can enjoy our fragrances. So obviously we sell them as roll-on fragrances, so people can wear them like a perfume or cologne. But, I want for people to be able to enjoy this in so many different ways that we started, selling them as in like dropper bottles, so that you can put them in a scent diffuser. Like if you have an oil diffuser at home that, creates the mist that diffuses that scent, into the room, then people can enjoy the scent around their home as well. We actually recently created fragrance diffusing jewelry. So by just putting a couple drops of that fragrance on this beautiful, demi-fine jewelry, so it's a very high quality, beautiful pieces of jewelry, you can actually wear your fragrance on your jewelry as well. And it lasts even longer on these, porous stones than it does on your skin. So it's another way to make your fragrance last. And then I have I have some collaborations right now working to start creating candles for us, and bath teas, and, bath salts and linen sprays, and all the things that, just help to create, to add fragrance to more aspects of your life, because people are craving ways to continue to use these fragrances, in new and unique ways, and to have unique experiences with them.
Go ahead and throw out your contact information for those who want to purchase these fragrance oils. How can we do so? Website, social media, all that good stuff.
We are on all of it. So AnuketLuxury.com is our website. And I should mention Anuket, well, it's spelled Anuket. Anuket is the Egyptian goddess of the Nile River. So that's where our name came from, just to give that, give credit back to the Egyptians and that discovered this papyrus oil. because papyrus grew along the Nile River. And so I said, if it's coming from there, we need to honor that. And so Anuket Luxury is our website, anuketluxury.com. And then all of our social medias are at Anuket Luxury. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of it. And it's all just at Anuket Luxury.
All right. Close us out with some final thoughts, maybe something that I failed to touch on that you would like to talk about, or just any final thoughts you'd like to leave the listeners with.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I said already, but my final thoughts that I always have to say is find a way to travel. A lot of people, use the excuse of not having time or money. Those things, are time you can never get back. Money, there are always ways to travel, very inexpensively. If you need to find somebody that that lives in a different area and, swap homes with them for a week so that you can visit their area and they can visit yours and whatever. There's always ways to do it. And there's just nothing else like it. You only have so much time, and creating these experiences and, exploring the world. It is by far the best investment you can make in yourself. So if you haven't had, the luxury of traveling in the past, start to make that, part of your to-do list. That's not a luxury. It's a to-do list that you really need to get done in your life to be able to experience those things.
Ladies and gentlemen, AnuketLuxury.com. If you're into fragrance oils, definitely check it out. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to other people who are into luxury oils. And be sure to check out the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast on the Podbreed Network as well. Ashlee, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much. I had a great time talking to you and your audience.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.